Good morning everybody, Chris Fawcett from the Headache and Pain Management Centre here for your Tuesday morning once again. It's good to be with you once again. Hey look, this morning we're actually answering a question that's come from one of our viewers, Lisa, who has written in after the last video. And Lisa's mum was actually a patient who came to see us, and I told a story back when she came in regarding pain and explain why pain actually moves around when you don't have a diagnosis. So why when you have whiplash or low back pain, which can look like a diagnosis, isn't actually a real one. It doesn't really tell you exactly what's going on. It's just sort of a word describing the symptoms. And what she asked was why pain can move around. Okay, so why pain can sort of feel like it's in your neck one day, in your shoulder the next day, can go across the other side, and then can go down to your back and then up to your head. It can sort of change around everywhere. So I suppose that's what today is all about. It's actually one of the more common presentations that we find in people with chronic pain that have this sort of pain that tends to move around. It doesn't matter how much you poke, it doesn't matter how much you prod, you press, you sort of move around to try to find where that really painful spot is. It's almost like you can't find it, and at times it feels like that you just don't know where the pain is in the first place. Where it can feel like, it feels like it is somewhere, but you just can't find it, you just can't touch it. And then what we find sometimes with patients is that it can be like that, and then it starts to spread everywhere and just doesn't go away. So basically today I'm wanting to prevent people from having that happen, prevent people from having to go through that any more than what they are. So now I suppose the negative points when you've got a condition like this is that you can get sort of sucked into sort of chasing the pain around. Hello everyone, I can see a couple of people joining in there. Type in below to say hello. Basically what can happen is that this is where you get these conditions called chronic myofascial pain syndrome or fibromyalgia, often diagnosed. Hello Tina, nice to see you. So with this chronic myofascial pain syndrome or fibromyalgia, what actually happens is that you get diagnosed with pain all over, and again it's just another symptom, a symptomatic sort of diagnosis rather than one that's sort of telling a cause of it. And I suppose today what we'd like to talk about are the causes. Hey Kirsty, it's nice to see you there. Nice to meet you. So basically today that's what we're going to be talking about. And again, like the last couple of videos, we're going to be talking a bit more about the brain and how the brain is able to do this to you. So look, the positive when this happens, and when you know about how the brain can trick you and how the brain works when it comes to sort of moving pain around, is that you don't need to go chasing it all the time, and you can just accept that the pain is there, and you can do some active things. You can take some positive actions, whether they be physical or non-physical, to actually get your pain to start turning down and retrain your brain to get things happening. So that's what we'll be talking about today. So I suppose when we talk about pain, we talk about what there's an area in your brain which is very important when it comes to localizing pain. Okay, now that part of the brain is called the somatosensory cortex. Okay, it's sort of right in the middle of your head. It's sort of in through here somewhere, and basically within that somatosensory cortex you've got these, there's different areas that are dedicated to different parts of your body. So say for example you think about when you have a paper cut. Okay, so I think everyone's had one of those. Type below if you've had one. So if you've had a paper cut, basically it cuts your finger, and it's just a little bit of a tiny cut underneath your sort of fingernail, and it hurts a lot. Like, it really stings. Okay, it's same as if you have sort of a little bit of hanging skin under the nail wick or something like that, and it really hurts. But you can often have a scratch down the back of your leg or on the middle of your back, and it doesn't hurt. You don't even know it's there until you sort of feel it and there's a bit of blood, or you have a look in the mirror and go, oh, that's a bit weird. There's a big bruise or a big scratch there. So what's happening there? So when it comes to your somatosensory cortex, now I've got a prop here, so we'll see how it works. Okay, so I'm going to go no. So this is actually my laptop there. So if you can probably see that on the, I know it's in a backwards image there, but you can see there on the picture that basically you've got different areas of your brain that are dedicated to different parts. So you can see there that along this part here you've got your trunk, your neck, your head, your shoulder and arm. Hopefully you can see that. There it is. Okay, trunk, neck, head, shoulder and arm. So they're all next to each other. And what you can see there is that you've got as much brain dedicated to your thumb and your fingers. Okay, so in that section here, whoops, I've just done that there. dedicated, as much area of the brain as it is for your neck, your trunk, and your head all put together. So when you have something happening with your hand, basically it hurts a lot more because you've got a lot more brain that actually dedicates to that part of the body. Now, what should normally happen is that when you have pain, you have basically the bit of the brain lights up dedicated to your finger lights up while the pain is there, and then it shuts off when the pain isn't. Okay, so I like to use a nail box, okay, to sort of describe this. Okay, so there's your nail box there. So effectively when the pain comes on, that's what it looks like. Okay, so you've got pain in, say, let's have a look, your neck area, okay, and then when there's no pain in the neck, it goes away. Okay, so if one nail indicates like 100 neurons or something like, or sorry, not 100 neurons, 100 million neurons, it goes like that, and then it turns off. Okay, that's what should happen. So pain goes on, pain turns off when it doesn't need it anymore. Okay, now when it comes to chronic pain, what happens is that the part of the body that's sore, okay, so like your neck or your lower back or whatnot, when you have pain, normally what happens is it turns on and then it shuts off, okay? But what happens when you have chronic pain for a long period of time is this, okay, where you've got this kind of little fingerprint or this little bit of sort of activity in that part of your brain that's always switched on, okay? So it always feels like there's something happening there because in effect the brain is telling you that there's something happening there, even though there may not be, okay? So it's like the lights are on all the time, but there's no actual physical tissue damage or anything that may have happened to actually cause that to actually occur. There's my camera there looking at me instead of the camera. So that's what can happen with people in chronic pain, where you have this sort of little bit that turns on all the time and it just refuses to turn off. Okay, so it might even look a bit like that. Okay, whereas in normal people that can inhibit their pain or turn their pain down, off it goes. Okay, so it does that. Okay, so that's the first point I suppose I'd make, is that people with chronic pain, with chronic neck pain or chronic back pain, effectively there's this fingerprint, this shadow that's left in your brain, where basically the lights are always in sort of a dimming type arrangement in your brain there, so it always feels like that there's something going on there, even if there's nothing that's necessarily caused it. Okay, so there's nothing new physically that can actually do that. Okay, so I suppose that's the first point that we'd make. Now, when it comes to chronic pain, this is what happens. So any pain that lasts for longer than 3 months, this is what can happen in some people's brains. So when you have, say, for example, neck pain, so there it is, okay, so there's my neck pain. What can happen, instead of just turning on the neck area of your brain, okay, you can see that that's like that, what can happen is that different neurons kind of around it can start to switch on as well, okay? So there's more neurons that are being switched on in your brain every time that something happens with your neck. So it looks something like that when there's neck pain now, instead of just, the normal little, finger like it normally was. Okay, so there's more neurons being turned on every time that there's, some sort of stimulus that comes on in your neck or your brain. Hi Chris, nice to see you, buddy. So basically what you have is that you have that little bit of neck pain, but then you have some extra neurons that sort of start firing up to cause that to happen, okay? So it feels like it's a little bit more vague, okay? Now, of course, what can happen over a longer period of time when the pain starts to spread, this is actually what goes on. So remember I said before that you've got different parts of your brain, okay? So where you've got that there, okay? So you've got that image on the screen there. So different areas of brain that are actually there next to each other. So you've got the trunk, the neck, the head and the shoulder, which we're going to deal with there. So just at the very top, trunk, neck, head and shoulder. So when you've got your trunk, your neck, your head and your shoulder, this is what's happening. Okay, so if we picture our brain, okay, is that. So you've got your trunk, your neck, your head and your shoulder. Okay, let's just talk about that as being, we'll do that a little bit better. There, okay, trunk, neck, head and shoulder. Okay, so let's just say that, this bit here, this middle finger here, this middle nails is representing your neck. Okay, so what happens is that instead of having just regular neck pain when you have, a mechanical neck pain or something acute, when you have neck pain that's been there for quite some time, like a whiplash or something like that, where the movement has sort of, turned down, there's a bit more sensitivity when it comes to the neck pain, what happens is that all of this starts to occur, okay, where all of these different neurons start turning on as well, instead of just the neck pain. Okay, so as I mentioned before, you've got all these different neurons that are turning on, okay, and then because they're in the same area, these neurons, as your other bits of your body, which is there where my fingers are, okay, instead of your brain just saying, hey, look, I've got some neck pain, I've also got some shoulder pain, I've also got some trunk pain, I've also got some head pain, right? So basically, when you get the neck pain coming on, like when something happens with your neck, all of a sudden there's all this pain that comes everywhere. So to your shoulder, to your head, and all these sorts of things, because the neurons, the lights, if you like, in your brain are lighting up all these different areas at the same time. Okay, so you've got your neck lighting up, you've got different other areas lighting up, and therefore it feels like that everything hurts. Okay, and what can sometimes happen is that instead of having just your neck pain with, you know, your other bits and pieces which are sort of like that turning on, okay, then when it starts to turn off, what happens is that at rest, the neurons that are turned on in your brain look something like, you know, let's do a fair example, it looks something like that. Okay, we've got all these different neurons all switched on, okay, all at random, okay, not being inhibited. Okay, so you've got all these different neurons all turning on, all dedicating to different areas of your brain, okay, and what happens is your brain literally can't localize where the pain's coming from, okay, so you've got all of these different neurons lighting up for all of the different areas where the pain, you know, or sort of, you know, allocate to, and because they don't have, and because your brain literally can't localize it because all these different dimming lights are on everywhere, it feels like you actually don't know where your pain's coming from. So when we get people that come in at times with things like fibromyalgia, with things like chronic myofascial pain syndrome, or sometimes just whiplash, chronic low back pain, things like that, we ask them where their pain is, and they quite often go, I don't know. I know it's around here somewhere, like I can feel it somewhere in here, but I just can't find out, or I can't localize where it is. And that's what's happening. Okay, so when you are able to diagnose that as being the problem, okay, and typically it's quite easy to sort of pick because the pain is very vague. It's not a really sort of localized nerve or peripheral nerve issue, so it's not, you know, pain blowing out your thumb or sort of going down into your, you know, second and third fingers like a nerve root out of your neck would be doing. It's this more vague kind of, you know, pain that goes everywhere, which is the sort of key diagnostic tool for that. So when you have pain in that manner, it's actually talking more about retraining the brain and nervous system rather than sort of treating something peripheral or something local. Okay, so looking at you know, a thumb or a finger or an elbow or a neck, it's actually treating the whole system from there. So in order to do that, basically you need to sit down with your physio or your health professional, whoever you see, obviously tell the story, and they need to know about the science behind this, because if they don't, what happens is you're led down a garden path where basically you're treating one thing, then another thing, then another thing, and basically you're chasing the pain around, which I'll be honest, is something that most physios were probably doing maybe 10 years ago. But now that we know all the new science on this, there's a lot more knowledge out there regarding the way that the brain actually sensitizes and causes pain, and sensitizes your whole system to cause this to happen. So that's basically what it's all about. I know that's a relatively short and brief summary, and I can go on for hours about all this, but that's basically what's going on there. So is there anyone here that's watching at the moment where that happens, where you've got pain sort of in your neck, in your shoulder, into your arm on different days? Perhaps it's in your back or into your hip, into your leg. I'd love to know and love to find out, because it's more common than what we'd like to know. So type in underneath if that's the case. But certainly for us here, what we'd be doing is sort of, we'd be doing a very, very thorough assessment to know what's going on in regards to all of this, so that we're able to do all of these sorts of things for you and get all this right. So yeah, I suppose that's pretty much it. I could talk more for a lot more, but I'll let you get back to your day. If there's anyone else who'd like some more information on that, I'm more than happy to personally contact you via Facebook Messenger. It's been really great to interact with the people that have been watching over that. So if you just type in below chronic pain underneath, I'll be more than happy to get back to you via Facebook Messenger to talk more about how we might be able to help out or help you out to sort of diagnose where your pain's actually coming from. Really relevant for people people with whiplash and chronic low back pain in particular, which tends to spread up and down the spine or down the arms or down the legs from there. So chronic pain underneath, if you'd like some more information, like, comment, share, tag anyone underneath who might get a little bit of useful information from that. And yeah, hope everyone's having a really good day for their Tuesday. We'll be back again about the same time next Tuesday with a new topic. Feel free to email or comment underneath with anything that you'd like me to talk about. Always looking for new content and always happy to help out in any way that I can. Thanks very much. From Chris here at the Headache and Pain Management Centre, have a really good Tuesday and hope to talk to you soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.